and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass, a series of digital-first conversations that we do here on the show, giving you, the entrepreneur, the chance to be live on a national platform, asking the questions that matter the most to you. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan. On tonight's show, we're talking about the importance of skilling in the Indian workforce. Why should you be looking at skilling? How you as an entrepreneur should skill yourself? How you as a leader should be skilling your workforce? All of that being discussed and decoded on the Masterclass tonight. Let me welcome our guests. Saurabh Jain, founder and CEO, Connexio. Ganesh S, CHRO, Emeritus. Gaurav Sharma, VP and Head HR, True Balance. Rajiv Srinivas, Senior VP, Talent Strategy, Maverick Systems. Let's start by asking each of you to introduce your businesses for the sake of our entrepreneurs. Saurabh, let me come to you first.
Thanks, Ananda. So, as you mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of Connexio. Connexio is an executive search and management consulting firm that I set up about 5 years ago. We've got offices in India and in Singapore. We cover the Middle East, India, and Southeast Asia with a focus on the digital ecosystem, BFSI, and the global captive centers of excellence and delivery centers in India. That's what we do, and super excited to be here.
Ganesh, to you next.
Thank you, Sunanda. My name is Ganesh. I look after HR for Emeritus. Emeritus is a EdTech organization with the mission of making high-quality education accessible and affordable to people across the globe.
Sure.
We're a 10-year-old organization, but we just turned a unicorn about a year back. And we've actually impacted 250,000 lives across the globe. Changing that to make their aspirations and lives much better than what they were before they took up our courses. We partner with the very best of universities and B schools across the globe and make their courses accessible for students or executives, regardless of which location they are based out of.
Rajiv?
So I represent Maverick Systems. Maverick is a 2-decade-old firm in the financial services, software services company in the financial services space. We are extensively working with global banks on both the Run the Bank and Change the Bank initiatives. We work on digital transformation, we work on data, and we work on quality assurance with them.
Hi, thanks, Sunanda, and I'm extremely pleased to be here. I'm representing True Balance. True Balance is an NBFC organization. We are a South Korea headquartered company. And we are actually into the digital lending space, and where we are actually trying to uplift the status of those people who are new to credit or uncredited. So where the banks don't give loan, we actually provide the loans to them, and that's actually possible through our machine learning and algorithms, where we decide that whether the loan can be given to them or not. Right, so excited to be here and excited to be part of this panel. Thank you.
Thank you all for that introduction. Let me talk about where the challenges lie. Data showing that nearly 62% of the population in India is of a working age. Just about 5% though, and this is a conversation I was having with the four of you offline, is actually employable. Those students who are passing out of college, less than 5% are employable. Where is that biggest challenge? Where is that gap?
I think for a fair point of time, we have very talented graduates coming out every year, and we do have enough and more hiring activities is happening across all kinds of companies, and everybody's trying to hire, everybody's trying to grow, and everybody's trying to build capability. But the issue is that the population which is passing out is not employable straight away. So there is a fair bit of gap. The gap not necessarily just technical, it is also to do with their soft skills. So the ability to speak, ability to communicate, because most of the businesses today are global. There's a fair bit of requirement, there's a fair bit of traction, but we're not able to really bring them into the workforce and make them deployable. So we seem to have those challenges. So we can continue to work with colleges, we continue to work with finishing schools, we continue to work with learning centers, but are we able to see the kind of output, and are we able to see the outcome? The answer is no. of course, there has been some improvements we have seen. There has been some movement we have seen, but that is not good enough given the speed at which companies are growing. And we need to really find some sort of a solution where this gap gets addressed more focused and more closely than what it is right now, Sunanda.
Ganesh, can you talk to us about both a domestic as well as an international view when it comes to skilling, and how the gap is being fixed and what perhaps we can learn here in India from what's happening globally?
Yeah, thank you, Sunanda. Our program or our organization makes, like I said, picks the courses from, say, the Ivy League, the IIMs of India, the NUS of Singapore, the University of Western Australia, etc. So the top schools of any sort of global location, takes that, converts it either online or blends that into an online plus, offline model and sells it to people at a fraction of the cost. So what we've done is that we brought Ivy League education, which was at one point of time absolutely inaccessible, just because a person wanted, say, from Bangalore, wanted to move to or do a course with Harvard, had to actually take a break from his or her busy work schedule, fly all the way to Harvard, do it twice a year, spend a fortune in terms of the course, etc. All of that is gone. We brought that Ivy League course to the study rooms of that person, wherever he or she or they are going to be sitting at, right? So at a fraction of the cost. So, no travel, nothing. So in the last year, especially, we've seen a sharp spike of people who wanted to take this. In India itself, executives and executive learning was clustered around, say, the 4 metros, or at best, say, places like Bangalore. But that has gone off the rails, right? So we've had people from remote Itanagar taking these courses. We've had people from all sorts of tier 2, tier 3 cities, as we call them, picking these courses and actually making their lives much better and different from what they were before they actually picked these courses. So, huge uptick in these courses in India specifically, but again, in the developed world or developing world as well, you're seeing a huge uptick in customers and students coming up for these courses.
Saurabh, do you want to jump in on that?
Yes, I do. So when it comes to skilling, I'd like to talk about 2 perspectives. The first is, yes, there are certainly companies like Emeritus which are doing an incredible job. I mean, we've been following their progress very closely over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's been very impressive what they've achieved. Now, part of the issue is also that the private sector needs to jump in India, because obviously state level resources are just not available or as abundant as they are in the developed countries. In Singapore, for example, what has been seen is that over the years, they have successfully transitioned their economy from being manufacturing and agriculture based to more service based, and now they're pushing very hard into the digital and knowledge oriented ecosystem. And they've had a high degree of success in this so far. And it's just that because those kinds of resources, that kind of infrastructure is not necessarily easily available in India, that's why companies like Emeritus have made such a huge impact. So that's at the kind of experienced, educated, senior person level. But then if you also look at a more fundamental level, I don't think you can talk about the needs for skilling while completely ignoring the issues with the educational system. Yeah. The fact that a lot of the people that Rajiv referred to as needing a lot more support before they become employable are in the situation, despite having spent 15, 16 years getting an education, because the basic education system and infrastructure in India, while much, much better than it was maybe 20 years ago, still leaves a lot to be desired in terms of making people job ready. Yeah. And the demands, as Rajiv mentioned, are becoming more and more global. So the requirements seem to be getting more sophisticated at a faster rate than the quality of the education is kind of trying to catch up. And again, of course, you come from a family of means, you go to a top school, it's obviously of our people go. So it always comes down to this, the private sector having to fill in for the gaps left by the system. For no fault of the system, it's a resource issue, but I think that is where the reality is.
I'm going to take a quick break on that note, back in just a moment.
Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass. Tonight, we're talking about the importance of skilling.
Ganesh, you're in the BFSI and the fintech space. For businesses like yours that are so niche and so technical, is it necessary, is it essential that you have to regardless train students at your end? What then happens to these large-scale training programs that the government has, for instance? How about those programs? Are they beneficial to businesses like yours?
Thanks, Sunanda. Sunanda, just let me give you a brief background what is happening in the industry. If you look currently, the job that exists, 9% of the Indians are currently in those jobs which did not exist around, say, around 3 or 4 years back. And Indian incorporation or Indian industry is very, very aware that what type of a skill set would be required. And maybe there's a strong partnership needed between the corporate and the business management institutes or the engineering colleges. What we are doing, like we have just launched through our CSR initiative, also we are training at a grassroots level. Like when we say that we are into the digital lending, but then mass population does not know how to apply digital lending, how to do that application or send that application to a digital lending platform. So what we are doing, we have launched the CSR initiative like a Sahayak program where we are actually training the masses which can train, which can go to the ground, and basically these are put on a street, who can train the people and tell them that, okay, how you can educate the mass of the Indians how to apply for the digital lending. These are the skill sets needed by us. Right? Similarly, there are other skill sets which are required at the corporate office level, like credit analyst, because the job did not exist earlier, but then now that job exists, and there's hardly any skill set available. So obviously we have to rely on the data analysts and train them with how to do the credit analysis job. Yes, we are doing that mass training. But then, as you rightly said, that companies like us can afford to do that. But then, what about these smaller companies? Whether they will be able to match this or not? I would say that India government has launched around. There's a plan to launch around 5,000 skill set centers. I'm sure that is about the vocational training that Indian government is trying to build on. But then the skill set which is required for the corporate jobs, it's still not there. And I think that the only solution is that if there's a strong relationship between the academics and the Indian industry.
Rajiv, do you want to respond to that one as well?
I think our businesses have not been greatly benefited by what is coming out of the skill development programs, because our need is a little more functional, it's a little more technical, it's a little more detailed. So we are actually running internal flagship programs. So we do something very, very specific. We intake people looking at their attitude, learnability, look at their basics, and then we actually put them through an extensive 4 to 6 weeks or 8 weeks kind of training, which is very specific to what our need is, and then we make them deployable. So this comes with fair bit of investment in terms of time, in terms of effort, in terms of cost as well. And then that is probably one of the ways of looking at our own requirement and see how to fulfill. So is this the future? I would like to feel that there is a better way of handling these things, so we don't have to do this every time. And I do understand that learning is a continuous process. I do understand organizations need to continuously upskill people, and that's also fairly internal and depending on the kind of work we do. But at an intake level, when people we are hiring from the market, we would definitely want them to come better prepared and better equipped than what they are coming right now with us. So we would definitely like the scenario to change. We would like to engage with people, partners, with universities, with initiatives where this kind of a pool is available for us, because I don't see this changing for us. I don't see the requirements. I only see this going up, going north. It's not coming south. Sure. So how are we equipped is a big question.
At this point, let me take in my first audience question coming to us from Sakshi Sharma. Her question open to all four of you. Why is it that companies seem to prefer those who have international degrees versus domestic degrees? What can be done about that?
I think to a large extent, it ties into some extent to what Rajiv was saying, which is that there is, as the requirements of the Indian ecosystem have gotten closer and closer to the global level, there is occasionally for some employers a degree of skepticism towards maybe institutions that they haven't necessarily heard of or haven't necessarily had some experience with. And in situations like this, perhaps there is a little bit of an old world hangover where somebody who's invested money to go abroad probably got a better education than from a university that people haven't heard of over here. I do think that's starting to change increasingly. However, if you look over the last, say, 20 years or so, the number of quality engineering colleges, medical colleges, institutions of higher learning has ballooned in India, and there's a lot of very high quality ones. But as Rajiv said, it's not always about just the technical skills. It's also about the softer skills. If I can just give you a quick example over here. I had the opportunity to study at the Booth School of Business at the University of Chicago. And the first networking training event that was held for us by the placement committee, going to your point, Rajiv, was 2 weeks before we had our first class. That is the degree of importance given to it by the MBA colleges there. Whereas, to the best of my knowledge, it is not given this kind of emphasis in India. And I think that's part of it, just being more job ready.
Let me also take in our first poll question, and this is for all of you who've logged in today. We'd love to hear from you. Do you think there is the lack of skill-based training and its availability here in India? Yes or no? That's on your screens. Our next question coming to us from Rekha Mishra, Assistant Professor of Raffles University. She says, please advise on skilling graduates who come from semi-rural geographies but aim to work at MNCs because they lack English language speaking skills but have other proficiencies and are proficient otherwise. What would you have to say? Open to all four of you.
Maybe communication skills, good attitude, and good maybe aptitude in terms of numbers, etc. are probably three big skills that are there. Even if we have all of these three in different combinations, I think language becomes a very important part because you are ultimately going to speak to a customer who will put that as the single most important criteria in judging quality, right? So this, and just for another question, there's a huge opportunity in that realm. There are very few skilling centers, skilling organizations which actually tackle the core problem of actually skilling up our language capabilities for our people. I think that's a huge opportunity. It is something which is existent. I acknowledge that, and there's a lot more that we can do on that.
Here are the results to the poll. 85% of you saying yes, 15% of you saying no. All right, gentlemen, so much more to discuss, but let me take closing comments from all four of you. What advice would you have to give our entrepreneurs about skilling and upskilling and just being prepared for working when it comes to this new normal?
So what I would tell you is that from a market perspective, the demand perspective, the growth perspective, we see this completely. The demand is going to be very high. The market is going to grow, and the need for people, better people, skilled people continues.
What has given us the success is being proactive in identifying the talent and skill set that is required by our organization.
Completely out of time. Then on the Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass, if you have any feedback for us, our contact details on your screens as we speak. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.